In this video, I'm going to show you how to create your own glazing materials in the user library in vsHome. To start with, I'm going to open up a job and show you where we can change certain materials on the model, such as the glazing. Okay, so if we just head over to the Glazing tab on the right-hand side within the Edit area, here is where you can choose the different types of glass, as well as the glazing thickness, using the drop-down menus provided. You can select the glass for the roof, fan light, sidewall, lower panel, bifold doors and patio doors. However, these options are blank at the minute as there is no glazing materials currently available for them. The standard options you see here are there by default, but as I said, you can add your own. So to do that, we're just going to go back to the All Customers screen and then into the Preferences, and then expand Materials on the left, and you'll see System Libraries and User Libraries. The System Libraries include the standard options that we saw before. These options come as default with the software, and the User Libraries is where you can create your own materials. Okay, so to create a new glazing material, firstly I need to select New Material Library, and then I need to give the library a name. I'm going to call it vsHome, with the short version of vsh. The short version is what you will see on the drop-down menus when choosing your materials in a job, as I showed at the start. Then just hit create. So now you can see the new library has been created. So to create the new glazing material, we want to go into the glass sub-library and then select New Glass from the center section of the window. Your new glazing material will then appear in the selected material area on the right-hand side of the window, where you can then edit it. So firstly, we need to name the new glass. Usually when naming a glass, we include the thickness, specification, and color in the title. This is because it's an easy way to identify your custom glass from the drop-down menu when working on a model. So I'm going to call this one 24mm toughened clear glass. So now we can move on to the cost, which is calculated in meters squared. For the purpose of this video, I will set the cost to £45 and then input the same value into the price field. Now, you will need to contact your glass supplier for accurate costings, but as I said, for the purpose of this video, we'll leave it set to 45. The software will then use the markup function to create your selling prices. So ensure to set your markup within the cost entities area of the preferences to whatever you want, and the software will calculate the selling price for you. Okay, so now we've set the cost, we can move on to the attributes below. To edit the attributes, you simply need to click on the boxes. As stated in the title, the thickness is 24mm. Moving on to category, you'll see the warning box pops up. That's just to remind us to make sure we amend the glazing arrangement to suit the 24mm thickness. So just hit OK. The category for this glass is going to be roof glass, so all you need to do is tick the relevant box from the list and select OK. The next row down is the roof matrix uplift. If your price matrix includes the value of the standard glazing option, then this can be used as an alternative way to pricing by meter squared. The roof matrix uplift will add a percentage onto your standard matrix costs. I'm going to leave this blank and continue to use the value within the cost field above. Now onto the glazing arrangement. So for a 24mm glass, the glazing arrangement will be 4, 16, 4. And we also have the option to choose between single, double or triple glazing here. I'm just going to hit OK. Allow obscure should be ticked if the glass you are creating is a textured glass, but as this is a clear glass, I'm going to leave it unticked. Now there is a button down here which allows you to add extra attributes to your material. As you can see, there is quite a few different attributes we can add. I'm going to add in max length as it's quite a common one to use, and this will prevent you from designing roofs that require a glass unit that exceeds this size. So just select the attribute and then hit add selected. Then we can adjust it, and I'm going to set mine to 3000 millimeters. Okay, so now we can hit save. And that's our first glazing material created. Now I'm going to make another glass. And what you can do is duplicate the one we've just created using this button down here. Duplicate material. This time I'm going to make a blue coloured glass. So firstly, I'm going to adjust the name to suit that and remove the word clear. Now I can select the colour itself. You do this by clicking on this box here and select the colour you want from the grid. Then I'm going to uplift the cost a bit to £55 and then input the same value again into the price field. Alternatively, if you are working with a matrix, you can use the roof matrix uplift function and input, say, 10%, for example. I'm going to keep the rest of the attributes the same as this is a coloured roof glass. So now I can hit save. Okay, so now I'm going to create a window glass. What I'm going to do is duplicate the clear roof glass we created initially. I'm going to change the specification of this glass, so I need to adjust the name accordingly. And I'm going to call this one 24mm toughened low E glass. I'm also going to adjust the cost up to £55 and again input the same value into the price field. Because this is a window glass, I need to change the categories to reflect that. So again, just click the box, deselect the roof options and select all sidewall options for the window and hit OK. I'm going to delete the extra attribute that we added, max length, as this won't apply to the window glass. So just select it and hit delete. Okay, now I can click save. Finally, I'm going to create an obscure window glass and I'll need to create a texture to accompany the glass. There are two ways you could do this. You could leave it as it is and only have one window glass, but tick the allow obscure option to add a texture as and when you need it. Or you could create a second window glass and name it specifically obscure glass. I'm just going to create a second glass altogether. So I'm going to duplicate this window glass we've just created and adjust the name to suit. And I'm going to raise the cost up to £60 and input the same value again into the price field. Then all I need to do is just make sure allow obscure has been ticked. Okay, so then I can hit save. So for the 24mm obscure glass we've just created, we need to add a new texture to accompany it. And to do that, you need to head over to the left of the window here and select New Texture Library. And then you need to give the library a name. I'm going to call it vsHome Textures and then hit Create. Textures can be found online and I've found mine by doing a quick search on Google. It's worth noting that it's up to you to source your own textures. So to create the new texture, just select New Texture from the center of the window here. And then we need to just give it a name. I'm just going to call it Texture 1. Then click the box below to add the image of the texture from your files. Now we need to set the category to obscure, which will apply to glass materials. And the real world width determines how wide the texture would fit on the model in real life. I'm just going to adjust mine to 1000 millimeters. The mapping needs to be changed to stretch to fit. And then we have a number of options for the cost here. Given that I have created a separate obscure window glass entirely, I have accounted for the cost within that, but as I mentioned before, you could just create one window glass and then just add the texture as and when you need it. If you were to do that, I would advise using the cost options within the texture so that when you add the texture to the regular glass, the cost is uplifted accordingly. If you choose to use these options here, you can calculate the cost by unit, perimeter, or area. Just make sure you input the amount in the cost and price field for whatever option you choose, as we've done with our other glazing materials. So I'll just give you an example. The cost is therefore inputted in both the cost and price fields. But because I have created a separate obscure glass, I'm going to leave these all set to 0, as I have accounted for the cost within that glazing material. Okay, so now I can just hit save. So we will need to restart the software, but before we do that, we just need to go over here into conservatories and then expand cost control, expand matrix roof costing, and then matrix costs within that, and then select options. The warning will pop up reminding you to restart. As I said, we'll do that in just a second, so just hit OK. The reason we've gone into this section is we just need to ensure that if you are using the matrix uplift options we mentioned before within the glazing materials, then the glass surcharge calculated via options needs to be set to suit that. So you would select matrix uplift percentage if you are using the matrix uplift options, but if you are using the cost field, then the cost per area and shape option should be chosen instead. So I've used the cost options in this video, so I'm just going to select that. Okay, so now we need to hit close and we need to restart the software. So I'm just going to do that now. Okay, so I've just restarted the software, and before we go into a job to try out the new materials we've just created, I want to hide the default glazing materials so that we can only see the new glazing materials we've just created. So to do that, we need to go into the preferences and then into materials and system libraries, into the glass sub-library, and just untick all the default options here. Then if we go into the user library, the warning will pop up to restart the software. We are going to do that in just a second, so hit OK. Into the glass sub-library. And then what we can do is use the favorite function, which will make that option appear at the top of the drop-down menu within the job. And this is helpful when you have a lot of glazing options to choose from. Then if we just go into conservatories, again, the warning sign will pop up, just hit OK. Expand on that. And then go into glazing. And what we want to do here is ensure that each of the options has the correct default selected for material and glazing thickness to suit the glazing materials we have just created. This will ensure that the drop-down menus within the glazing tab don't appear blank initially when working within a model. Okay, so now that's done, we can hit close. And remember, we'll need to restart the software for the changes to take effect. Okay, so I've just restarted the software. Now if we open up a new job and open a model within that. And if we just head over to the glazing tab, you will see all the new glazing materials that we created are available to choose from, and that the blue glass and the low E glass have both been applied by default as we selected the favorite option for both of those. Now what we can do is change our sidewall glass to the obscure glass that we created using the drop-down menu. And then using this little icon here to the right, we can add our texture, hit OK. And if we just zoom in, you'll see that the texture has now been applied to the model. For more tutorial videos, visit the support area on our website.